for any kid having the opportunity to be able to be creative in whatever way. So it's not going to always be music for every kid. Maybe it's dancing, maybe it's art, right? But to not afford every kid that opportunity is a really profound loss.
Yeah.
I think. You know what I mean? I'm just so deeply grateful that I was able to discover this thanks to my parents allowing me to explore.
You are listening to Notables, an Education Through Music podcast. As always, I'm your host, Noah, and I'm joined today by Anne-Marie McDermott. Annie is a classical pianist and member of the Chamber Music Society of Lincoln Center. She is also the artistic director of several music festivals, including Bravo, Vail Valley Music Festival. Now, without any further ado, Annie, thanks so much for being here.
It's a joy to be here and to talk about such an important and fun topic. Thank you for the invitation.
Of course. What I know about your early childhood music experiences is that your first concert you attended at the age of 5, mm-hmm. and I know that your first performance at Carnegie Hall was at the age of 12.
Right.
And so I'm very interested in what happened in those 7 years interim.
Yeah.
Made
That's
that happen.
A very good question, right? So I grew up in a non-musical family. Both my parents were non-musicians. I have 2 sisters and a brother. And my mother, I'm for my life, I'm so grateful to her. She, at around the age of 5, exposed all of us really to music. I played the guitar, I played the piano, my sister played the violin and the mandolin, my brother played the tambourine, and we sang songs. But also, I took Irish step dancing lessons, I did gymnastics, I was a high diver. So just a busy, fun exploration as a kid of possibilities with my life, right? And so all my sisters and I, we all studied with the same teacher on Long Island, Joseph Constantino. Mm-hmm. So he was kind of a jack of all trades. He was wonderfully fun and approachable and not too disciplined at all. This was just make music, have fun, challenge yourself, communicate. And so, every holiday in my household, growing up, every holiday involved music making. That was just normal. That's what we did, is we all played music together, the whole family, the relatives, all of this. So, we just kind of plugged away. I have to say, I was very drawn to playing the piano, and this is why I have such a passion for exposing kids when they're really young to an instrument. For me, with the first concert I went to when I was 5, I don't remember who the performer was or what the piece was, but it was a piano concerto. Mm-hmm. And I just remember this visual image of a big, shiny black instrument on stage in front of an orchestra with a spotlight on it. And to me, at that age, I thought, this is the most powerful and the most glamorous thing I'd ever seen. It just, wow, I just want to be that powerful, right? Then you go through life and you learn a lot better. But you get humbled along the way. Right. But at any rate, so, as in those intervening years, we all entered small little local competitions, and I always loved performing. The great thing about being a kid is you don't yet know about having fear when you get up and perform. You're just kind of brave. You just go do it, right? And so got better and better. By the age of 10, then I started going to the Manhattan School of Music pre-college division in the city. And so that was very, that was like a real feather in my cap that I got accepted. My whole family, we all started going there. And I started working with a very disciplined Italian man, Dalmo Carra. And I was a very obedient student, so I loved having the structure of what he taught me, putting a fingering on every note, all this. And then I had an opportunity of performing Mendelssohn G minor concerto. I think it was just the first movement at Carnegie Hall when I was 12. And again, the great part of being that age, it was just like, okay, yay, let's go do this. Like, no fear,
Right.
And then life progressed from there. But I'm so grateful because it was a very happy, fun, creative childhood.
Yeah.
You know?
The idea that a very disciplined teacher could be exactly what a student is looking for. That's not always what you hear, but I suppose there is a place for all of these different approaches and all of these different styles amongst students. And as long as that is what the student's looking for, that can be a great thing.
Really beautifully put. I had never really thought about that, right? But because everything's within context of everything else, right? My first teacher, who taught all instruments, was completely undisciplined, and that was great because it gave me a fearlessness, it gave me a joy. By the time I was 10, I was kind of playing like a pig, because I wanted to play, give me a score of music, just the more black notes, the more I wanted to play it, right? The harder the piece, the more I wanted to play it. And so what I needed was the skills to be able to play these pieces, because that's what my passion was, and I didn't have the skills. So that's why I say when I then, switched to a teacher who I was ready for, I was ready for such a disciplined approach, right? And I think you brought up such a great, profound point. I don't think there's any one correct, quote unquote, path, right? Every kid's different. And, my path in the ensuing years after the age of 12 was very, very unusual. I only studied till I was 18 years old. I never studied again after the age of 18. I don't say that to advocate for it, right?
Right.
For me, that's what I needed because, again, I loved the discipline, but I wasn't taking ownership of what I was doing artistically. So yes, a teacher said, play it like this. Again, I was very obedient, Irish Catholic. Yeah, I'll play it like that.
Play it like
sure,
that,
I can do that. But I wasn't actually making decisions. And so I had to, at a certain point, kind of free myself of all that structure, put all the pressure back on myself to figure things out.
Yeah. So you had these 5 years with a sort of less disciplined, not undisciplined probably, but less disciplined teacher that allowed you the space to realize what your own personal goals were.
Yes.
And they involved finding more discipline so that you could play more black notes per square inch.
Absolutely.
And then
so true. Yes.
And then you did the drills, you gained the skills, but then you realized you didn't have the ownership of your musicianship that you wanted.
Exactly. I didn't have a personal voice with what I was doing musically. And I felt, and it's an interesting transition because you don't really know if you actually have a powerful musical voice until you really start experimenting and taking ownership of it, right?
Right.
But I think part of my whole early journey was having siblings also play music, right? I played a lot of piano four hands with my oldest sister, a ton of repertoire for violin and piano. Then when my oldest sister switched to cello, then we were playing piano trios. I was forced, quote unquote, to play concertos with both sisters. So I'm learning these orchestral reductions, right? So there was a really nice balance between competitiveness and having fun together. And I don't find anything wrong with a little dose of competitiveness, right? I really don't. And I think, life is long. A life with music in it, it's a whole lifetime, right? So you're going to go through your ups and downs and phases. But more importantly, I think for any kid, having the opportunity to be able to be creative in whatever way. So it's not going to always be music for every kid. Maybe it's dancing, maybe it's art, right? But to not afford every kid that opportunity is a really profound loss.
Yeah.
I think. You know what I mean? I'm just so deeply grateful that I was able to discover this thanks to my parents allowing me to explore.
And now for a short break. This podcast is made possible by Education Through Music. ETM's mission is to positively impact student motivation, achievement, and self-confidence by partnering with under-resourced schools to integrate music education into the core curriculum. To find out more or to support ETM in its mission, go to etmonline.org. As the piano playing sister, you were the highest utility musician in the group because you were accompanying everybody.
For sure. For sure.
And so how did that, I mean, obviously it prepared you to then take on a lot of work as a musician. Whereas if you're strictly a soloist, you probably don't play as many concerts every year as if you are
a collaborative artist. Yeah, a collaborative pianist. Yeah. You know, it was really circumstantial for me that, I mean, of course I was playing with my sisters, cellist, violinist. We were playing piano trios. I was accompanying them for everything. I even was forced as a child to practice intonation with them. So you're a violinist. So here I am sitting at the piano as you're learning Tchaikovsky concerto, playing every note on the piano so my sister could play it in tune. I did that. The sacrifices we made. And I certainly didn't always love it. Okay. But it absolutely gave me the skills and the confidence that then when I grew up in a family with very little money, right? So at a certain point, I wanted to start making some money. So I put myself out there, starting when I was like 16, of I'll play your jury with you, your recital with you, your audition with you, whatever. And I actually did really well. I didn't even have a bank account. People just paid me cash. And I was very busy accompanying everybody on the planet. And it was really good. And again, that was one of those periods of time where I just had endless courage, because I remember one example of a cellist who was going to Manhattan School of Music, the college division. He approached me 2 days before his recital. His pianist got sick and couldn't play with him. He needed me to play his recital program. And one of the pieces was Rachmaninoff Cello Sonata. This is like a piano concerto, this piece. It's hard. I never played it. I didn't own the music. I was like, sure, yep, I'll do that. And learned it in 2 days. And and I would never proclaim that I always made the best choices, but I was brave. I was doing that, and it's real. So that created the foundation for what became a very big component of my career as a professional musician, which is chamber music, right? But it also, this has been a revelation to me. Those years of just playing with everybody and the lessons I learned, the non-musical lessons I learned, were really, they stay with me to this day.
As a collaborative pianist, as opposed to someone who's strictly playing solo repertoire, how does that inform your approach to Bravo Vail and some of the other festivals that you direct?
Great question. And I mean, first, I think through doing a lot of collaborative piano work, it informs my solo piano work, right? This is a crazy thought that I had some years ago, but I mean, essentially when you're playing solo piano music, it's chamber music in a way, because as a pianist, we have to do lots of voicing, and any musician does, but particularly at the piano, right? And so it's almost, you're dealing with all 10 fingers, both feet, and playing chamber music kind of brings you outside yourself. When you're just doing solo repertoire, you're in this little orbit of playing the piano, but you're not able to actually step outside that and hear what you're doing, actually.
And everybody else has to kind of fill in around you.
Yeah.
As a soloist.
Right. And when you're doing chamber music, you're forced to be listening to other people. Right. You're doing a piano trio. You have to hear how the cellist, the timing of how they're phrasing their phrase, or the violinist is doing this. You have to think about voicing. You have to think about pedaling outside of yourself. to make it blend with these other instruments and for the greater good of the piece of music, right? That's always been an incredibly helpful skill. But the very first artistic directorship I got was a tiny little community in Florida called Ocean Reef. It's a private gated community. I've been running this sweet week-long festival for 18 years now. And it's just a week long. Maybe I go down there with like 8 colleagues, something like that. So it was a great introduction to how to put a music festival together. And the number one focus has to be the music and the integrity of the music you're presenting, right? That has to be number one, right? And the quality of what you're presenting has to be number one. But it was my first experience of people outside of music giving me their passionate opinions about what I was programming. It's like, you please don't program any more Shostakovich. We hate that, that kind of thing,
Wow.
right? As an example. And so it was really interesting to me how I reacted when I first encountered that kind of a thing of, no, we only want to hear Chopin and Mozart. And I think it was Shostakovich Piano Quintet, which, I mean, of course, is a very, very dark piece of music. I get that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
An acquired taste, maybe.
An acquired taste, absolutely. Right. But, and you learn as you go. But anyway, I remember a gentleman coming up to me after that performance, very, very upset about this. And my reaction to that was, I asked him, tell me why this upset you. Like, I want to understand when you're listening to this music, what did it evoke in you that made you get upset and fired up about it? Because this is the great thing about music is it speaks individually to all of us, right? I may love Chopin Third Sonata, you may not, and we're both musicians, right? And that's the great thing. Music speaks about things that words don't suffice in speaking about, right? And to me, having a patron very upset was a challenge of like, wait, what is it? And then we ended up having a long conversation about it and having a beautiful hug at the end of the conversation. And it was kind of a revelation of like, I think he maybe just had never heard Shostakovich before. And on first hearing, he was like, I'm not going to waste my time listening to this. But in talking it through, he realized, well, actually the darkness of this piece was evoking, some painful memories from my own past. And like, so in general, the qualities that we learn through music making of picking your battles. So you're going to want, if we're playing, Brahms G Major Sonata, you're going to have certain phrases that you're going to want me to do your way. And I'm going to have certain phrases I want you to do my way, right? We can't win every battle. We have to figure out which priorities. And when you're running a gigantic music festival like the Vail Festival, this is a 7-week festival with 4 orchestras. Those challenges are always there that I have to pick my battles, okay? And I always just equate it back to music making. That, right? Okay, no, I'll give you this phrase if you give me this phrase, as long as we're both within reason.
Some consensus making.
Some consensus. That's exactly it, actually. That's it. And then being able to really communicate. So if you want to do a phrase a certain way, if you don't know how to describe it to the group you're playing in, you're not going to get anywhere. So understanding how to advocate for an idea that you have. And sometimes in my experience with Vail, this will be my 14th summer coming up now. So it's a long time. And sometimes I've pushed an idea too soon. I didn't plant seeds for the idea. The big idea for me was I wanted to have an international chamber orchestra at the festival. But I came on too strong at first, and so I kind of got shut down, and then I realized, first of all, I was a little too passionate about it. I didn't socialize the idea over a little bit of time, right? So that I think as a artistic director, you're a leader in a lot of ways for the organization. So you have to be willing to always show your passion for what you do. Because that pulls people, when we talked about that addictive quality, that pulls people into this world of music. When they realize really all you need to do is open your heart, open your ears. That's it. You don't need to know a thing. That's it. It's music. Just listen. Just react how you, right? So that being disciplined, I program probably at the Vail Festival. Well, there are 21 orchestral concerts and probably another 20 concerts. So it's probably about 50 programs or 45, 50 programs every summer.
Yeah,
So,
over 7 weeks.
Over 7 weeks.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So it's like if you're not disciplined in your process, you're sunk.
Right.
Not going to go well. Yeah. Not going to go well. So
yeah, you can't procrastinate and then expect to pull that off.
No, you just can't. You just can't, right? When I think, about the importance of music education in young people's life, it's on so many different levels, right? So for me, when I started at 5, I didn't know I was going to become a musician, right? Between the ages of 5 and 10. But I was able to open up as a person, kind of find confidence with myself through music. For me, that was an avenue where I could kind of just feel valuable as a person. And every kid needs that, right? And I think, there's all these amazing studies talking about the impact that a music education has on a young person, right? And that they're better at school, they're better at math, they're better at friendships, they're all of this. And I absolutely believe all of that. But on top of that, I think for a kid to have access to learning about anything actually is important. So at the age of 18 or 20, they don't have a fear of going to a science fair because they don't know anything about science. Why does that not apply to music? Right. So they don't have a fear of going to a classical music concert because they're feeling like, oh, I don't know how to act. I don't know anything about music. How am I going to react? If you think about what this world, and unfortunately we all got to experience what this world would be like without live music. We all experienced that during the pandemic.
Right.
That, to me, I think that is a recipe for lots of psychological issues because words just don't speak to everything that we feel as human beings. Art does.
Yeah.
Sports don't. They don't. And I'm a tennis lunatic, but sports don't speak to that. Music and art speak to that, right?
Yeah.
But one other lesson I've learned along the way is, and I always say this to young musicians, whether they're going to become a musician or not, the business of being courageous in your life and willing to take chances, it's a very big turning point in my life was when my mother died when I was 14. And that, that again impacted the path that I took because it was so devastating, right? I think that's why I stopped studying at 18. But between the ages of 18 and when my 20s, my career was up and down. Some good years, some terrible years, with concerts. Of years I just would get very few concerts and I was trying to support myself and all of this. Then when certain opportunities, an artistic directorship first came up in Ocean Reef, Florida, I had never done this. And in fact, all my friends kind of were making fun of me because they said at that point I was terrible at returning phone calls or writing back to people or I was terrible, right? But I also wanted to kind of see what's behind that door and take a chance. And it's really because of the chances that I took on my journey, I think that I've been able to have a successful career for, decades, right? Because I wasn't set that this is one path that you have to take. And I think the greatest gift we can give to any kid is that courageousness, that sense of freedom, that learning is such a gift in our life, right? And how can we dare not allow kids to learn about music? How is that possible that we wouldn't prioritize that? I don't understand that.
Well, Annie, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to me today.
Oh, it's awesome, the work that you're doing, and it's a privilege to be able to talk to you about such an amazing and important topic. Thank you.